Good evening, and welcome to the virtual candidate forum for the Colorado House Districts 48, 50, and 64. I am Kathleen Milligan, co-chair of the League of Women Voters for Greeley and Weld County. The co-sponsor for this event is the Latino Coalition of Weld County. The 102-year-old League of Women Voters is a political, nonpartisan organization of men and women that encourage informed and active participation in our democracy. We work to increase understanding of major policy issues and influence policy through education and advocacy. Although the League advocates for issues after extensive study, it never endorses or opposes candidates. The views expressed this evening will be those of the candidates, not of the organizations who are sponsoring it. Please be aware that the League of Women Voters neither supports or opposes candidates. Since redistricting has changed some Colorado House district lines, you may not be sure about what your House district is. A rough description of these House districts follows. It is not exact, I might remind you. House District 48 follows the 85 corridor from North Greeley to Brighton, east of Highway 85. It includes Gilchrist, Lochbuie, and Hudson. District 50 includes downtown Greeley and the University District, roughly between Highway 85 and 35th Avenue. It includes Garden City and parts of Evans. House District 64 includes North and West Greeley, along West 10th Street and Business 34. It also includes parts of Evans, Berthoud, and Meade. To confirm which district you are now in, go to the Colorado Secretary of State website, Go Vote Colorado. On it, you may choose View My Ballot. That is the quickest and easiest way to do it. And you will find your House district listed, along with all of the other races that you will be voting in. The purpose of this forum is to inform voters. We hope that your time spent here will help you make informed decisions on Election Day, November 8th, 2022. This evening, a supporter of the League, Dr. Ron Edgerton, will moderate the forum. Other League members will be helping out. Time and sign holders are Ruthie Rockwell and Kathy Heiss. Technical support comes from Jean Lippman and Hannah Pogue, who is the operations manager for the state Colorado League of Women Voters. And Sandy Magnuson and I will be monitoring the Q&A. You will be able to put questions into the Q&A that is at the bottom of your screen, and hoping that we have time and we are able, we will be asking some of those questions. Now I will turn the mic over to Ron Edgerton.
Thank you, Kathleen, and welcome everybody. Thanks to the candidates for being here. This is the Colorado State House District 48, 50, and 64 combined candidates forum. I am pleased to be your moderator. The goal of the forum, as Kathleen mentioned, is to present the views of the candidates in a fair, nonpartisan setting so that you, the voter, can make an informed voting decision. There's some ground rules. I want to begin by by covering, and I'll do it as quickly as I can because we want to get to the candidates. These ground rules have been covered with the candidates. The questions that will follow will be new to them. We have not discussed those. The forum, again, is not a debate. The purpose of it is to inform voters through respectful questions, and you, audience, will get a chance to ask questions at the end of the forum. You can write those questions and send them through the Q&A portal, and you can do that right now. But the questions should all be for all the candidates. Don't direct your questions to a single candidate. We don't want any campaign banners or signs or literature, all that kind of thing. Let's just have this as a forum and not a debate. The candidates for each district will speak in alphabetical order by district, and then we'll scramble them after that and see how that works. All candidates for each district were invited to attend. One did not respond, and one thought he could come but was not able to at the end, canceled. If a candidate did indicate that he or she would not or could not attend, we invited him or her to give a written opening and closing statement, but we did not receive any written statements from the two candidates who will not be here. Ground rules again, candidates have 90 seconds for opening remarks, and then 1 minute each for answering questions and for their closing statements. Time limits, as Kathleen mentioned, will be strictly observed. And we've got these timekeepers, Kathy Heiss and Ruthie Rockwell, with their little signs, and particularly that stop sign that can't possibly miss your attention. If you're in mid-sentence, go on, finish your sentence, but we want to keep things going and give every candidate a full chance to answer. As your moderator, I'm responsible for enforcing the time limits. I may interrupt you as candidates if I believe that you're straying from the subject of the question. Questions were developed and screened by the League of Women Voters sponsoring leagues. These questions are broad in nature and cover a variety of issues pertinent to the 2022 election and to voters. Again, towards the end of the forum, there'll be time for questions from the audience, so you can submit those at any time. The questions from the audience will be screened by our panel for appropriateness, to avoid any kind of duplication, and for local interest. Again, questions should be addressed to all candidates, not just to one. Candidates, don't use any props other than the ones that you brought with you in order your notes and so forth to answer questions. All electronic devices, except for the devices you're currently using, should be turned off. Please mute your cell phones. And the link to this video will be posted on our website and Facebook page tomorrow. The League of Women Voters requests that any recording be only shown in its entirety. Okay, and now I get to introduce the candidates. For House District 48, we have Spring Erickson and Gabe Evans. Eric Joss thought he could come, but canceled. From House District 50, we have Ryan Gonzalez and Mary Young. Kyle Moore did not respond. From House District 64, we have Ryan Armagost and Richard Webster. We'll now begin with opening statements, and I'd like to start with House District 48, and we'll do this in alphabetical order. Spring Erickson, you're on with an opening statement.
Thank you, Ron. I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum tonight. My name is Spring Erickson, and I am a Democrat running for House District 48. I'm a fifth generation Weld County native. I was born and raised in Fort Leavenworth, Colorado. I graduated from Fort Leavenworth High School in 1995. I was a member of Colorado State University and graduated in 2000. I went to School of Theology at Denver University and graduated with a master's degree in 2007. Well, I worked 8 years in the United Methodist Church as a minister. I left the church to help my parents when my grandparents were ill and were passing away. And after I left the church, I went and I worked for 10 years at Valley High School in Gilchrist, Colorado, as a substitute teacher while I helped take care of my parents and my niece and my sister as we've all kind of bridged this life together. Currently, I'm still taking care of my family, and I am a writer of 4 novels, and I'm also a painter, and that is my life story. The biggest thing that is our campaign is education. We are also looking for healthcare and keeping what families need in Colorado so they can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Gabe Evans.
Well, good evening. And first of all, I just want to apologize to all of the viewers. By the time I received this invitation, I had a couple of other things scheduled. And so I am coming to you live tonight from the front seat, passenger seat of my car. My wife is heroically driving. So if I drop out for a minute, I apologize in advance for this loss of cell coverage. Again, Gabe Evans, Republican candidate for Colorado House District 48, which goes from Brighton up to Greeley. I am a Colorado native, married with 2 kids, and own and operate a small farm down by Fort Lupton, Colorado. I served for 12 years in the U.S. Army and Colorado Army National Guard after I graduated from college as a UH-60 Blackhawk helicopter pilot. I've deployed overseas and also responded to all of the domestic emergencies, wildfires, search and rescues that we have here in Colorado. And I also served for 12 years as a police officer, sergeant, and lieutenant with the Arvada Police Department. I've sworn 3 separate oaths to uphold the Constitution and take care of the community, and that's why I'm running tonight. Crime's out of control, cost of living is skyrocketing, and 60% of Colorado kids can't read at grade level. I want to put my 2 decades of experience to work to solve some of those problems. Thank you very much to the organizers for this event tonight, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Gabe. House District 50, Ryan Gonzalez.
Well, hello, everybody. It's so good to be here. To League of Women Voters and Latino Coalition of Weld County, I thank you for putting on this forum to obviously get to a better understand the candidates. As many of you know, I'm running for House District 50 because I'm sick and tired of all the divisiveness, all of the polarization that we become. I believe that is not who we are. I believe we deserve better. I believe we're meant to have better. And right now with the situation in the state of Colorado, it has been growing with record crime, inflation, education. These are things that I'm hearing across the district as I'm talking to people. I've been working since I was 15 years old, so I know the effort it takes of hard work, not expecting handouts, not being given handouts by my parents, by my family. Everything I have is because of my hard work ever since I've been 15 years old. For 10 years, I've been a volunteer for nonprofits, specifically suicide awareness. Mental health is a big issue for me. The Special Olympics, because my aunt has Down syndrome, and homelessness. So I've given my time to the rescue mission to help out and understand the issues that are facing our communities. And I want to work with these experts, and I've gotten to hear from regular people in those specific issues and what their concerns are and how we can do better. I believe that we need citizen leadership. I believe we need fresh new ideas with fresh new faces, people who represent us as a generation, my generation specifically, that is severely underrepresented in government as well. I pretty much grew up here in Greeley. I went to school at Northridge High School, STEM Magnet program, and I also went to UNC. So go Bears. Proud UMCB alumni. I did my degree in business management, and obviously it was a terrific time at UNC. And I'm just proud to call Colorado home. And I'm running just to represent the people of this district and work for them and fight for them.
Thank you, Ryan. And now we'll hear from Mary Young.
Thanks to the League of Women Voters and to the Latino Coalition, I'm excited to talk about the great work I've accomplished for the people of Greeley, Evans, and Garden City. I am using my extensive experience of over 40 years as a community leader, a school psychologist, and a special education teacher in my position as the state representative for House District 50. As a recognized leader at the Capitol, I've successfully passed numerous bills over the past 3 years, 21 this last session, that are responsive to the needs of people right here in this area. These bills improve the daily lives of hardworking families by addressing the economy and affordable housing, mental health and substance use disorders, and services for older Coloradoans and individuals with disabilities. As Vice Chair of the House Education Committee, I worked intensely on many education issues, including funding and school safety. I passed a major bill as the main sponsor to establish a medical school at UNC. This effort will attract more students to the Greeley area and dramatically improve our economy. I also sponsored and passed bills for public safety, including a bill on fentanyl, reproductive health care, including abortion care. I know how to craft bills, meet with stakeholders, and get legislation over the finish line. I've successfully represented House District 50 for the last 3 years. I ask for your support again so I can continue this great work.
Thank you. And now we move to House District 64. And I'll ask Ryan Armagost to give your opening statement, if you will.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. I'm Ryan Armagost, Republican candidate for Colorado House District 64. I'm a Northern Colorado native of LaSalle and a graduate of Valley High School. I spent my career in 22 years of military service, starting in the Marine Corps and retiring in the Army National Guard. That has taken me, like Gabe had mentioned, all over the country for natural disasters, as well as all over the world. Iraq being my double dose that I got with the Army National Guard. During that time, I was able to serve 10 years in law enforcement as a deputy with Larimer County Sheriff's Office. Prior to that, I was serving as a volunteer firefighter for Evans Fire Department for 2 years. I'm a single dad and a working class patriot, a small business owner, and a firearms instructor. My endorsements include Sheriff Steve Reams, Colorado Fraternal Order Police, Colorado Chamber of Commerce, Colorado Farm Bureau, Colorado Homeowners Association, and many more. I'm a natural born servant and leader with a career of serving my country and community, and I'm not a politician. I plan to bring our state to the top 10 for mental health and addiction treatment rather than being the current second worst for both of those. I also plan to hold criminals accountable again by re-implementing strong minimum punishments, as well as implementing strong judges and prosecuting attorneys. I have many other plans for change and hope to get your vote in November. And thank you to the organizers for the invitation. And I look forward to your questions this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And now also running for House District 64, Richard Webster.
Well, I would like to say thank you to the League of Women Voters. And I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Richard Webster, running for Colorado House District 64. Just a little bit about me. I'm a husband of 3, married in 1984, 38 years. I'm also a grandfather of 12. I lived in Greeley for 39 years and starting out at the University of Northern Colorado. My first round of graduate school was unsuccessful. 16 years later, God blessed me to go back to school, and I received a master's degree in education. And 12 years later, after that, received a terminal degree in 2017 in administrative leadership at EDS. For 20 years, I've worked in public school as a public school teacher in a number of districts and have taught very diverse students. In the past 3 years, as a Pentecostal minister, I believe in a democratic structure of our democracy, and I believe in women's rights and civil rights for all citizens in our state. I also believe that we should vet all who want to own high-powered rifles with a minimum age of being 21. And we can solve the Colorado problems of affordable housing. I also believe we can assist mothers and fathers with high costs of daycare, and I believe we can fund all-day preschool. I would like to ask for your vote. And what can I do for the state of Colorado if elected? Serve in this seat with integrity, honesty, and transparency. Also listening to my electorate because you are the ones that hire and fire. Colorado House District is a new district adding different parts of Greeley with the towns of Meade, Berthoud, Johnstown, and Milliken. With this being said, it will be an honor to serve in House District 64.
Thank you, all of you. And now we'll move to the questions. And the first question I'll direct to House District 50 first, then we'll go to 64, and then we'll go to 48. And the first respondent, I'd like to be Mary Young. And the question is, what do you believe is the most pressing issue Coloradoans face, and how should it be addressed by the state legislature?
Thank you for the question. I really think right now, I'm going to frame it in the economy, but there are many issues impacting the economy. There's the issues of affordable housing. There's the issues of outside forces that we don't have control over. We do live in a global economy now, but in the legislature, in this last year, we did lots of good work, and I think we need to continue that good work. We saved people money. We addressed issues of the economy in lots of different ways. We saved small businesses taxes. We saved property owners taxes. We expanded access to the child tax credit, which brings families out of poverty. And I think we need to continue along that method.
Thank you. And now I'd like to ask Ryan Gonzalez to answer that question. Would you like me to repeat the question, Ryan?
No, I actually got it.
Okay.
So the most pressing issue that I'm hearing from voters is inflation, right? They feel it when they pay at the pump. They feel it when they go to the groceries. They feel it with the rising costs of rentals. I can tell you, working in the financial services industry, that I see it every day. I work with regular people. I don't work with top 1%ers or people that have excess money. I work with people here in the community. And the number one issue that I continue to hear about is they can't afford it, especially our senior citizens who are on fixed incomes and the rent is rising. A lot of those is just crushing the bottom, the working class, people who live in this community. And I feel like what we can do towards moving in the good direction, the opposite direction of getting our economy back on track, is we got to loosen regulations. I feel like there's too many regulations, too many laws that have impeded and driven up the cost. We got to work with the private sector. A lot of these times, the people that work in the private sector, that industries are impacted, don't get a seat at the table. I feel like our state legislature right now at this time has overstepped and think that they know better than the private sector to impose these laws that only affect it. We got to loosen regulations. We got to cut taxes and fees. They like to tout that they, in fact, did make it affordable for small businesses, but a lot of the fees were temporarily delayed, or they were just cut temporarily. And then we'll see it back up again here very shortly after the election. But for me, I want to help small businesses recover, supply chain disruptions, everything that has caused the pandemic. A lot of people are stressing out, they're worried, they're concerned. And I feel like we got to work the private sector, taxes and fees, and help our community.
Thank you, Ryan. And now we'll move to House District 64, and I'd like to have Richard Webster go first and then Ryan. Would you like me to repeat the question, Richard?
Yes.
What do you believe is the most pressing issue Coloradoans face, and how should it be addressed by the state legislature?
Well, of course, it's inflation. People are waking up every day with high gas prices, high fuel costs, high grocery bills. And what can be done with the state legislature is just to look at taxes and try to minimize that, and look at how to go into companies, having them work on building up inventories so that the price of goods are not so expensive. Going to the oil companies, talking to them, and finding out how we can lower those gas prices, and working that way. That's one of the top things in this inflation. Other things with we're dealing with is affordable housing. And so we definitely need to work on those issues and situations where the state legislature can be involved with that. So thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Armagost, the most pressing issue?
I think for me, it might be based on my experience, but my background in law enforcement. When people come to me, it seems to be a lot of issues with theft, and in my community, it's definitely hitting hard here. Crime is a huge issue. The spiraling crime issue we have in our nation, Colorado is #1 in auto theft, #1 in property crime and bank robberies. We're #2 in fentanyl deaths, #1 in cocaine deaths. We're #4 in recidivism, #13 in homelessness. And homelessness is simply a term our legislators and media use it to describe those in mental health crisis and addiction crisis. And I think addressing those issues between mental health and addiction is probably going to mitigate a great portion of our crime issue that's been spiraling out of control in Colorado. I have a plan to do that. I've been working on that and have a lot of people backing me to make that happen. And I hope that we can address the mental health crisis and addiction crisis and treatment in Colorado.
Thank you. Okay, that's question 1. And we're beginning to get, I think, a little more comfortable with sort of time limits. Thank you all for following those. That really is appreciated. Let's go to question 2. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot Gabe and Spring. So let's go to 48. Thank you. And Gabe Evans, if you'd go first. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Nope, I've got the question. So again, like a lot of other folks have said, as I'm out talking to folks in the community, what I hear is that the cost of living and inflation. And I think there's a lot of things that feed into that. And unfortunately, it's a lot of things that the legislature has done over the last few years. Gas prices have effectively doubled. Well, guess what? You got Senate Bill 181 that adds a bunch of restrictions on gasoline and the production of energy here in Colorado. We've got that new 27% transportation and delivery fee. That was something that the legislature has recently passed. As Ryan mentioned, Armagost, we've got a crime spike. Well, the total cost of crime here in Colorado is estimated to be $31 billion because even if your car doesn't get stolen, when we're the #1 state in the nation for auto theft, guess what? Everybody's insurance rates go up. So I think there's a lot of additional taxes and fees that have been added and regulation that have been added by the legislature, and we need to look at undoing a lot of those different things.
And thank you. And Spring Erickson.
I already got the question, so thank you very much. The biggest thing, again, I think everybody on the panel has pretty much said it, is the economy and the inflation. And we as a legislature can do things about it. One of those things is to make sure that we see a living wage across the board for the state of Colorado. We can help small businesses by either reducing taxes or reducing red tape to start your and develop your own entrepreneurial. I think one of the biggest things we're missing is that we can build the state of Colorado into a venture capital state where new little incubators can grow and thrive. We can drop the gas tax a little bit, as Gabe had mentioned, that we need to drop what was just put on. We also can produce more oil. We have 15,000 jobs here in Weld County and in Adams County in the oil industry, and they are willing and ready to help make clean, affordable gas for everyone. We also can help with ag and continuing to help the food supply chain get better so that we can see full grocery stores again.
And thank you. And now we can move to question number 2. And we'll start with House District 64 this time. And I'll ask Ryan to go first and then Richard. What will you do to see that Colorado's election system is secure and safe to ensure fair and democratic elections? Ryan Armagost.
I think getting involved with the counties to begin with, seeing how the counties manage their elections, and then going to the state level to make sure that there is absolutely there aren't any seams that anything can be slipped through. There's nothing that can be unseen by the eyes of the voters. There isn't enough transparency in our election system. I think voters need that transparency, and they need that ability to see that their vote counted, but also that there is absolutely no issues. There's no way their vote couldn't have been counted or otherwise, and that there's nothing going on behind a curtain that they can be unaware of. So I think the biggest thing is finding out how the counties are doing things, how their transparency works, how they communicate with their citizens, and then how the state does, and making sure that there's transparency across the board.
Thank you. Richard Webster. And I'd be glad to repeat the question if you'd like.
Yes.
What will you do to see that Colorado's election system is secure and safe to ensure fair and democratic elections?
Well, I like the way the system is working for us right now with mail-in ballots, giving people a chance to vote. You know, you have working citizens all the time, can't make it to the ballot box or the polls. And I like the way our state has done it. I think we're probably one of the leading states in the way we are doing our voting at the moment. And I think transparency is a thing we must look at, making sure that there is no illegal things being done, making sure fair and free voting for everyone, and not taking the right to vote away from anyone. That should not be in a democracy. So I like the way Colorado's doing it. Like I said before, Colorado is probably one of the leading states in voter registration, and the way we do mail-in ballots. I hope we keep that. We keep the state blue. We can definitely keep it. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move now to House District 48. I'll ask Spring first and then Gabe. Spring Erickson, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. I think we have one of the best election systems out in the United States in general. We need to continue to support our county clerk and recorders. I know Carly does a great job for Weld County in making sure that everything is running smoothly. One of the best programs that I have seen, and I've actually used it myself personally, is ballot tracks. You can watch your ballot actually leave the county and clerk recorder's office and come directly to your home. And then when you fill it out and you drop it back off, or as I do, I drop it off at the polling place in Fort Lupton, you can watch that ballot go all the way back and be counted through Carly. So you can make sure that your ballot has counted. And that is one of the most important factors I think we have in Colorado for our election system. Thank you.
Thank you. Gabe, you're on.
Well, good evening again. So I think that here in Colorado, having worked for 22 years in the government, there's always things that we can do to improve the efficiency and transparency of any government program. But like a lot of the other folks have said, I think in Colorado, we generally have a pretty good track record. I'm fortunate enough to having seen how Weld County conducts their elections and tracks the ballots from the time they're mailed out all the way to the time that they're received, counted, and then stored for the next 25 months in the event an audit needs to occur. And I've seen a lot of the safeguards that they use. But I think that information that I have is something that could be broadcast, and we could do a better job of having that transparency to the general public so that they could understand step by step how their vote is cast and how all of the safeguards go into place that make sure that their ballot is counted and that there aren't other votes or ballots out there that shouldn't count. Again, we can always tighten up things a little bit, but generally I think just greater transparency.
Thank you. And now we move to House District 50, and I'll ask Ryan Gonzalez to go first.
Yes, well, I believe there's always room for improvement in our election system. Number one, we got to clean out the voter rolls and make sure only legal voters vote. I want to make it easy to vote, harder to cheat. I believe in also voter ID. Mexico has voter ID and it works out very well. I can tell you my parents come from Mexico and they have voter ID. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I believe that people need to get more involved at the county level, right? I trust my clerk and recorder with the elections. Like Gabe, I was invited to actually see the process, and people don't know the processes that go behind the scenes when they're picking up ballots, when they're verifying signatures, when they're sorting them out. There's a lot that goes into it to make sure we have secure elections. And I invite people to obviously tour when they can and be a part of it, because if people actually understand the processes that go along with it, we can do better, and obviously not spreading misinformation that there has been, because like I said, let's make it easy to vote, harder to cheat. Another thing as well is I am against automatic voter registration. And the reason being is because there's people that I've run into that just do not vote. They do not like to vote. And I respect their wishes not to, but I feel like we shouldn't be automatically enrolling those people that do not want to vote.
Mm-hmm. Perfect timing. And Mary Young.
voting is so critical to democracy. It is essential. And so it is important to continue to monitor how it works. I am proud of our system in Colorado. We have been looked at as a model system. I think our ability to vote, get the ballot at home really allows increased accessibility. When I knock on doors and I talk to mothers with young children, it makes it so much easier for them and for our older Coloradoans also. We have a clerk and recorder system in this state that is wonderful. Carly Coppice is a leader, and we have bipartisan clerks and recorder, and they attest to the validity of our system. And I think we need to continue to monitor voter fraud, but it has never risen to a level of concern in our state.
All right, thank you all. We'll move now to question 3. And I'll be asking House District 48 to go first. First Gabe, and then Spring, and then House District 50, and then House District 64. Question 3. What will you do to support and ensure equal access to resources, such as food, housing, security, educational opportunities? Equal access to resources for all people, including the Latinx and immigrant populations in your House district. Gabe Evans.
That's a fantastic question, and I think the answer to that is that generally the free market does that much better than any sort of, government trying to control all of the different strings. Again, I've worked for all different levels of the government for a combined total of 22 years, federal, state, and local. And really what I can say after seeing that is anytime the government gets involved in things, it typically makes it harder to navigate that system. I'll give you a specific example. I've met with a lot of healthcare providers. And really what one of their biggest concerns is navigating a lot of the government mandated hoops that they have to go through in order to get reimbursed through things like Medicaid for services that they provide to the community. So by streamlining and being able to empower the free market to provide those resources, I think we'll be able to provide a better product for cheaper than it's currently being provided to the citizens.
Thank you. What will you do to support and ensure equal access to resources? Spring Erickson.
I believe that a fair and living wage helps with that. We can break a lot of the issues with economy and housing things down. But we also need to make sure that there are not any gentrification issues that are going on. We're seeing that especially here in the Brighton, Adams County areas. Maybe not so much in Adams County and Weld County in my district, but I feel like we need to make sure that housing is equitable and that we have the protections in place to make sure that everyone has the right to housing. We also need to make sure that there is a fair and living wage, and we also need to make sure that education is accessible, especially the post-secondary education through UNC, CSU. These things need to make sure that they're always equitable. Thank you.
House District 50. I'd like to start with Mary Young. And would you like me to repeat the question, Mary?
No, I think I've got it. Thank you for that excellent question. This has been a focus of mine as a legislature ever since I came into office. As I work, I'll give an example of my behavioral health administration bill, which is trying to break down the barriers people have encountered accessing behavioral health across the state. And we have priority populations, and we have it embedded in the bill to make sure that people have access to the behavioral health care they need. We're establishing a diverse workforce so you can access a therapist or help in your native language and someone who's culturally competent. So all of my bills, I look at it from that focus. So we need to continue to do that. When we did Economic Recovery and Relief Task Force, that was our focus, finding that balance between the business community needs and making sure we were meeting the needs of all communities in Colorado.
Ryan Gonzalez, equal access to resources.
Yeah, well, a lot of it, I believe in competition. I believe competition is a beautiful thing. And how do we get that way? We move towards a free market approach. We eliminate the regulations. I can tell you a lot of the people, specifically in the Latino community, want to start a business. But the fact of the matter is, the hoops are too high, the barriers to entry are too high. We got to lower them. We got to have a level playing field. We got to make sure that it is fair. We shouldn't be picking favorites to multi-million or billion-dollar companies. We should be empowering our local communities, small business here in House District 50, which is the backbone of House District 50. If you look at 8th Avenue, small businesses are getting crushed by regulations, by the fees, by the taxes. And a lot of times too, we make it harder for competition to actually jump in, which will help drive down the prices of many goods and resources, but also make it accessible for people in the Hispanic community to start businesses because they see a need that is not being met. We have a shortage of labor. We have all of these people are trying to fill these needs here in Colorado. And how do we do that? We got to have a level playing field. We got to have lower taxes and just to encourage competition and incentivize it.
And we'll move now to House District 64. I'd like Richard Webster to answer the question first, if you would.
Yes, in terms of getting access to resources, affordable, I'm going to piggyback off of Ms. Erickson, affordable or wage, a living wage is very, very, very important. Also, access to post-secondary education is another fact that we can help people rise up through the levels. I hear a lot of talking about the free market system. The free market system is a very good system, and I believe in a free market system. I have a bachelor's degree in economics, but with limitations. We must make sure the free market system is working for families. At some period, it's not working for families. And corporations up prices. That's why we have inflation. Corporations do that. And so we need to look at, as state legislature, how to go to those corporations, talk to them about raising their prices and just helping families with economic problems. So thank you.
And Ryan Armagost.
I believe it comes down to the same as other people have said tonight, that it's got to be less government and more free market. The issues that we have right now are that we need to make sure that people are working for their wages. It's affordable, it's attainable to get the resources across the board, rather than having certain Americans paying the bills for others while they're struggling to pay their own bills and get their own resources. So I think making it equal as far as attainable and affordable is great. Having it to where we have to pay for each other is where it becomes an issue. So less government regulation on that, more competition and more free market.
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you all. We'll move now to question number 4, and we'll start with House District 50 this time, then go to 64 and finish up with 48. And I'd like Ryan Gonzalez to go first this time. Question 4, what are your positions on issues related to women's health care, reproductive rights, and a constitutional amendment protecting the right of abortion in Colorado? Ryan.
Well, I believe that I am a big believer of women's rights, just like men's rights. And I believe that those type of decisions when it comes to reproductive should be a decision between a woman and her doctor. I believe that government should not be involved in that. As far as making an amendment to the Constitution, I would be opposed to it as a state legislature, because amending the Constitution is harder. And obviously, if you want to make some changes to it, it's really difficult to amend that, right? I am for, however, allowing citizen initiatives. So if citizens want to put it on the ballot, I am more than happy to. But again, I do believe in with reproductive rights, and that should be a decision not for the government, but between a woman and her doctor.
Thank you. Mary Young. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I got it. Thank you. I am totally in support of women's reproductive health rights. I voted for the Reproductive Health Equity Act, which ensured that women do not have access to reproductive health care, including birth control and abortion care if that is the decision they make with their healthcare provider. As far as an amendment to the Constitution is concerned, that is going to be decided by the citizens of Colorado. And however it gets on the ballot, either initiated by the legislature, if the majority of legislators present are being told by their constituents that that is something that they want to do, that is fine. Otherwise, it can be a citizen-led initiative. But I'm sure, considering the climate now, there will be that discussion of an amendment to our state constitution, one way or the other.
Thank you. And we move now to House District 64. I'll ask Ryan Armagost to lead us off. Would you like me to repeat the question, Ryan?
No, sir, I've got it. As far as this is concerned, I'm also a fan of equal rights for every American man, woman, and child. With that, as we've seen, the health issue, the abortion issue is not a US Constitution issue. That is a state constitution issue. Colorado has now, as of last year, the most extreme abortion law that was passed in any state, and it's allowing the termination of a child up to the birth of the child. So as far as seeing an amendment, I think we could probably knock that down a little bit to making it less of an extreme issue as far as our nationwide other states go, neighboring states go. But as far as it being a state issue, do I see it as something that can be amended? Absolutely. I think it's something that can be amended for the better to better fit everyone's rights and morals. Thank you.
Richard Webster, your positions on issues related to women's health care, reproductive right, and then the constitutional amendment.
Yes, I totally believe in strong women's rights. And the voters should make that decision, I believe, in putting it on the Constitution. I think that should be done by the voters. And I'm really happy that our other party is coming on board with that, because a lot of them were opposed. So I'm glad they're coming on board. So yes, really believe in women's rights, strongly believe in that, and in women's health care.
Thank you. House District 48. Start with Spring Erickson. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Nope, I've got the question. As a woman, I am fully supportive of women's reproductive rights and reproductive health care. It should be a decision between myself and my doctor, as for all women and all men for their health care for that reason. We've seen that the Supreme Court has overturned Roe, and that makes it that they've brought it back to the states. And if we as a state don't put it in the Constitution the way that the people of Colorado want it to be stated, then it will eventually come down to a legislative vote where the bill that was just passed in June or in April will be overturned if that's what the next legislature or any legislature in the future decides. And so we need to have that as an amendment. And I think the people of Colorado know that, and it will come down to the people of Colorado deciding what that amendment will be. Thank you.
Thank you. And Gabe.
During my time as a police officer, I unfortunately had to respond to numerous situations of abused and battered women where their access to healthcare was a critical issue. And so something that, I saw during my experiences there was that sometimes when you paint with too broad a brush, you get the opposite of what you actually intended. This recent bill that we have here in Colorado is the most extreme pro-abortion bill that we've got anywhere in the country. And honestly, it's a competitor for the most extreme in the world. And what I saw personally was, rather than solving a lot of problems that women have with equal access to healthcare and making sure that we're actually solving their problems, is it actually empowered people who are abusing women, human traffickers, pimps, people like that, who then were able to use this wide open floodgate to be able to coerce or intimidate or manipulate a woman into getting an abortion to cover up the evidence of crimes against women. So I think we need to take a long, hard look and see, is this in fact what we really want? And the polling shows that 70% of Americans, to include folks from both parties, think that abortion up to the moment of birth is probably a little bit too extreme. So that's the conversation that I would like to have. And I think that conversation will also inform whether or not this should be something that is added to the Constitution.
Thank you. Question number 5. And we'll start with House District 64 this time, then go to 48 and 50, and in 64, Richard Webster, and then Ryan Armagost. Question 5, how can you as a legislator work to end the epidemic of gun violence in America? Richard Webster.
Well, thank you for the question. The end to gun violence. That is a question. The only way we can probably solve this problem is vet people who have guns, to make it, illegal for those who have criminal histories, those who abuse guns. We can't just buy them off the street. We have to regulate that. We can't allow everybody to have high-powered rifles with a lot of magazines to them. We can't do that. We have to use common sense. Common sense says that for high-powered military weapons, and I've served in the military, I was in the Army, that has to be limited, vetted. We have to go to family members and police, making sure people do not have records that are abusing family members and have a criminal history. That's the one way, I'm not saying this is the only way, but that's one way to look at eliminating or at least decreasing gun violence.
Thank you. Ryan Armagost.
Thank you, sir. I think the biggest issue with addressing guns is the lack of knowledge of guns themselves, the firearms themselves, and the laws that are already in place for preventing guns from getting into the wrong hands. I think the biggest issue that we have to deal with is we're never going to end gun violence. We're never going to end violence, but to bring that down to a sustainable level of tolerance and overall just being able to cope with it as a society, it's gotten excessively worse, is dealing with the underlying problem, which is mental health, mental illness, and addiction crisis. Dealing with those issues and bringing those issues to light, and also making it publicly aware that people with those issues are going to be suicidal and homicidal and have those tendencies. Taking the tools away from everyone to be able to defend themselves, I think, is the wrong answer. But getting the people that need the treatment, that can have access to guns, getting them the treatment first, whether it's addiction treatment or mental health treatment, is key in preventing those from getting as bad as they are now and hopefully better in the future.
Thank you. We move to House District 48, and I'd like Gabe Evans to answer, if you would. Gabe, are you with us?
During my 12 years in the military and 10 years, you there?
Yes.
How
I think you're breaking up.
about now?
We heard you. Are you still on? There. No. I see your face, but we're not hearing audio. Are you muted?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
You're muted. Hey, Gabe Evans, you're muted.
Okay, I've got unmute on my side.
Good. Go for it.
All right, sorry about that. So 12 years in the military, 10 years in law enforcement, and I've still never met one of these criminals that's going to obey a gun law. So I think the question is not just gun violence, I think it's violence in general. One of the most violent assaults that I saw during my police career was actually committed with a clothes iron. So I think we need to focus on the underlying issue of violence in general, and I think that stems from two things. Number one, we have a blatant disrespect for our laws right now. Colorado already has a lot of the things that the left side of the political spectrum wants. We've got magazine capacity limits. We've got a red flag law. We've got almost universal background checks, and we're still seeing almost record highs in homicides. So I think that we need to focus on enforcing the laws that we have to show people that there are consequences for bad behavior. To bolster our mental health system. Cops don't want a mental health provider. And I can tell you the reason they are is because the system has broken in a lot of places. Resources are not they need to be for those folks, for our neighbors who are suffering from mental health, substance abuse, and other issues. So I think we need to focus on general violence, general law and order, and getting resources for mental health and IDD.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm sorry about that breaking up. I'm not sure what to suggest, possibly stopping at a place where you are getting good reception. But let's move on to Spring Erickson.
Yeah, so with gun violence, I see it from the opposite direction. I've worked 10 years in a school, and one of the most vivid images I have is seeing seniors come up to me and ask me if a will on their phone is enough if they are killed in a school shooting. And it's almost gut-wrenching to watch these kids, especially right after Parkland, have to deal with gun violence every single day in their heads. That is today the day I don't go home from school. We need to make sure that they feel safe. And if that means that we have to have that tighter gun law on the AR-15, then we need to do it. We also need to make sure that background checks are working. And I would love to see a actual licensing for people who want firearms. I hunt. We have firearms in our family. I would be more than happy to have a license to be a hunter in terms of owning a gun, just like anything else, like driving a car. They are a weapon of death, and we need to regulate them just like we regulate cars that are weapons of death.
Okay. Again, thank you. And we move to House District 50. I'd like Mary Young to answer this question first.
Important question, difficult to answer in 60 seconds. This is a critical issue for all of our society. Spring talked about schools. It really was the STEM shooting in Douglas County when the students came out of the school after the shooting and chanted mental health that propelled me into pursuing this seat. It is not just a mental health issue though. Really it is the minority of mass shootings are committed by people with mental health issues, but we have an environment where people haven't gotten the help they need when they're young and gotten the prevention that they need. So that in combination with common sense gun laws, like we did firearm storage, which would make sure children don't have access to firearms in the home. That is what we have to continue to pursue and look at, and really look at well-researched methods to address this.
Thank you. Ryan Gonzalez.
Yeah, well, this is a very great question. And I can tell you a lot of people who are for tighter gun laws personify the gun as if the gun decides one day to go out and kill people. I can tell you it's more than the object. We got to get away from the object. And we got to talk about the person. We got to talk about the person behind it. I can tell you gun-free zones draw those kinds of people to cause harm, right? No more than making strict gun laws. Same thing with drugs, right? We have some drugs are legal, but we still can't keep them off our streets. It's just plain and simple. We have to talk about mental health education. You know, it's the person behind it, because I can tell you, take away the guns, and what you're going to see is you're going to see an uptick in auto violence. You're going to see explosive. You're going to see knives. People, if they want to do evil, will do evil. They do not need a gun. And right now we have some of the very tight gun laws here in Colorado, and they're not working because obviously our crime with weapons, specifically guns, are going up. So obviously that is not helping at all. I'm for obviously mental health education and treatment, which is necessary. And also hunting classes. If we teach people gun safety at a young age as well, you can't take a say that a child obviously shouldn't be, because if you teach them the safety and how to manage it, it also helps in their development later on to properly handle a gun, not misuse it.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to question number 6 now, and I'm going to ask the candidates for House District 48 to go first, Spring Erickson, and then Gabe Evans, and then we'll move to 50, Ryan Gonzalez and Mary Young, and then to 64, Ryan Armagost and Richard Webster. Question 6, what are you willing to do to provide adequate funding for K-12 education? Spring Erickson.
As an educator, as someone who's worked in education, I would say anything and everything we could do. We are 39th in funding in the nation. We need to bring that up. We're running about $5,000 per pupil. And one of the things, especially in our district, is that the base stabilization rate actually is harming our school boards. As my sister is on a school board for Weld RE3 J here in Weld Central, we have seen that by having them have to pay back money, they're actually having to take away from students, and that needs to be fixed immediately. I'd also like to see an increase in special education funding so that schools can help those students even more than they already do.
Thank you. And Gabe Evans, are you on?
Yep.
Good.
So I think that we need to focus on a couple of things here. The first is the amount of money that's actually making it into the classroom. Here in Colorado, only 55% of the funds is actually making it to the classroom. The surrounding states are averaging at least 62% of that. And when you're talking the size of our budget here in Colorado, that 7% difference is almost a half. So I think we need to incentivize people to get more of that money to the classroom and spend less of it on administration and bureaucracy. And then I'd also like to point out that there was actually a bill that was brought last year that would have made up that budget stabilization factor in its entirety, almost $750 million, in exchange for allowing parents to have more choice in selecting an education that works for them rather than being locked into whatever school district they're assigned to. So I think that being able to increase parental choice in selecting education is also a critical part of negotiating to make sure that the schools have the funding that they need.
Thank you. House District 50, Ryan Gonzalez.
Yeah, well, this is a great question again. I am the product of public education, and I can tell you I love all my teachers. They have been terrific. What we need to do is we need to reallocate our budget, because I can tell you there's more money that should go into education, but the fact of the matter is it is not, and I feel like it is a waste. One thing we need to do is we have to have funding follow the student, right? Like Gabe said, school choice and, alternative schools, vocational schools, trade schools, obviously encouraging competition, if you will, with the other schools. And another thing too is in this last session, the Senate Democrats actually killed Senator Kirkmeyer's amendment that would have given teachers pay raises without adding a single penny to the debt. And I feel like teachers do deserve pay raises. I feel like they're going through tough times, just a shortage. We got to support our teachers. We got to help them, but we also got to encourage parental choice and, have the money follow the student as well.
Thank you, Ryan. Mary Young.
This is a critical issue, and as is funding in so many areas in the state. Obviously, I've worked my whole career in public education. When I came to Colorado in the early 80s, I took a pay cut from Illinois, but we were in the middle of all the salary schedules. Now we are at the bottom, depending on what state, what data group you're looking at. We need to address this issue, and I'm willing to look at all options. I consider talking. It's important for this to be a bipartisan solution, because this is an area that we we really sometimes conflict a lot about how to really address salary schedules, funding for services. And we certainly have a state that provides lots of options. Charter schools are public schools, and parents have the right to choose those options. We need to continue working on solving this problem, and I'll do anything to come to a solution that will work.
Thank you. In House District 64, Brian Armagost.
Thank you, sir. I think the best thing we can do is break down where the funding is going and track the money and see what amount of that is actually going to the teachers and the students. The whole system right now is broken in Colorado. 60% of our kids can't read, write, or do mathematics at grade level. We have a need to bring common sense academics back into our schools, transparency for the parents, and the money going to the teachers and not the bureaucracy in between. And like a couple of the people have said, it needs to follow the student. We have to give parents the choice of where and how they give their children the best education possible, whether that's in district schools, charter schools, private schools, homeschool, but with the same benefits and resources to help those kids succeed. But, and I agree with Mary, this should be a nonpartisan issue. This should be across the board, something that we need to focus on to take care of our kids and teachers.
And Richard Webster.
Thank you for that question. I'm a public school teacher at the moment. We need just increased funding across the board for principals, teachers, and for students. We need access to more curriculum. We need access to more funding for special education, and we need to even the pots. Some districts get more money than other districts. We need to figure out a way to equalize that out, and so that all schools are funded the same way. Rural schools on this side of the city school, which is the poor side of the city or county, we need to equal the pot. And so that's where we need to do. And plus, I do believe in parent choice. Parents should have a choice to put their child whatever they need, and that money needs to follow that child. And that parent should be able to pick that school or whichever school they want. So that's what I believe.
Thank you. We'll move on now to the seventh question. This will be the last question before we open it up to the audience. And in this case, we'll go with House District 50 first, and Mary Young, and then Ryan Gonzalez, and then House District 64, Richard Webster first, and then Ryan Armagost, and then House District 48, Gabe Evans, and then Spring Erickson. Okay. Do you believe the state legislature should address climate change, such as moving away from dependence on fossil fuels? Mary Young.
I think that clean energy in addressing the issues of climate change is very important. We all need energy to have a successful life. Developing sustainable resources of energy and protecting the environment doesn't have to be an either-or situation. So we should be protecting clean water, land, and wildlife, and we need to make a responsible transition to a clean energy economy. And this needs to be done in concert with the energy industry, one of our biggest employers in House District 50, and also an industry that benefits our schools. Along the way, we should ensure climate solutions are just and protect workers and our most vulnerable communities. So this is an issue that needs to be addressed as we look at the summer that we've lived through, which scientists around the world say that this is an indicator of definitive climate change, which will have immeasurable impact on the health of our individuals in House District 50 and our economy.
Thank you. Ryan Gonzalez.
Well, you know, no one's opposed to renewable energies. I believe in hydropower. I believe in nuclear power. I believe in biodegradable plastic. But these are solutions that we should be working with the private sector for, not at the expense of oil and gas. Here in Weld County, House District 50, a majority of the working class are blue collar, petroleum, oil and gas people. Now, one thing that is true and science has proven is that natural gas is in fact a clean form of energy. And I feel like these companies will lead the way towards a renewable energy, but we can't force as a legislature these important sectors in our economy to do the change. We have to encourage it and incentivize it, but not forcing them. And I believe we can do a transition over time to get those renewable and clean forms of energy and start moving towards a greener place, but not at the expense of oil and gas, and certainly not forcing them.
Okay, House District 64, Richard Webster.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure can, if I can find it here. Do you believe the state legislature should address climate change, such as moving away from dependence on fossil fuels?
Well, we all see what the weather's doing. We just had a Hurricane Ian in Florida, took over most of the state. We see the devastation of floods in our country. We see the devastation of fires within our country, not just where it was in California, but all over the West. We have to make a sensible, reasonable transition from fossil fuels. We have to. Otherwise, our children and our grandchildren will suffer more devastation because of it. Yes, we must protect our energy families. We must make a small or slow transitions. Those high-paying jobs have to be replaced. And so we must move in those areas. But we have to, because we're killing our environment. And those naysayers who say that this is not true, they're wrong. We have to change. We have to change. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard, but we have to do it.
Thank you. And Ryan Armagost.
I would agree that we need to put more nonpartisan information and research into climate change. But in the meantime, we can't jump into something that's undeveloped and leave behind something that is fully developed. Colorado was the top state for US oil production when we were energy dependent. Our governor and the Democrat majority in the House have completely shut down and dismantled the Colorado oil and gas industry and pipelines to enable the severely underdeveloped and unplanned green energy movement that still leaves a bigger carbon footprint than fossil fuel energy production and usage. Colorado had the cleanest oil production in the world due to regulations put on our oil companies and refineries. With those being shut down and villainized, we now find our oil from other countries that are not looking out for our best interests and are also the heaviest polluters in the world. So while we need to look at sustainable energy and green energy, we need to have a solid plan in place before we completely get rid of something that we have working that is as clean as it can be right now.
And thank you. House District 48. And we'll begin with Gabe Evans.
So I have a small family farm, and so protecting the environment, ensuring that we have clean air, healthy soil, good water is absolutely vital, not just in the broad scheme of things, but for me specifically, because that's how I run my family farm. And so I think that when we have this conversation about climate and about energy sources, I think we need to actually have scientific, data-driven answers about where we can get clean energy sources. And, here in Colorado, House District 48, we produce some of the cleanest energy in the world. And I can say that because I've been to other parts of the world that produce energy in a much less responsible way than we do. So when we attack sources of energy that we have here in Colorado, we're forced to go get it from other parts of the world that are major polluters. And when we force technologies that aren't completely developed yet, we actually end up with green energy sources that may not be actually as green as they're supposed to be, and we just end up exporting a larger carbon footprint to other parts of the economy or other parts of the world where that footprint is harder to see. So I absolutely support taking care of the climate, but we have to make scientific decisions on how best to do that and not just go with politically expedient talking points that export that carbon footprint to lower income or minority parts of the world or economy.
Thank you. And Spring Erickson.
We are beginning to see the climate change is happening and it's real, and there's just no denying it at this point, as everyone has said. But yes, I live in a neighborhood that if we took away, oil and gas right now, it would decimate my entire neighborhood. And I refuse to do that to my neighbors because I love my neighbors. And I would like us to open up the DJ Basin again and start pumping the natural gas that's in it and actually converting the 2 power plants we have over on the West Slope into natural gas converted energy plants and not coal, and get off of the coal and get onto natural gas, keep that clean energy going while we also continue to develop our solar and wind programs here in Colorado. 360 degrees of sunshine, we could be the leader in solar energy, and we can develop that technology here. And we have many companies, especially in Adams County, as in Weld County, that are working to develop those solar panels. And we need to work with Vestas and everyone else to continue to bring that up to the specs so we can go to 100%, but it's probably another 20 years away. So we need to use everything.
Thank you. Let's get busy. I misspoke. We are running out of time, and so we're not going to be able to have time for audience questions. I'm very sorry about that, but we want to give the candidates each a chance to give a closing statement, and then we'll finish with a closing for where we go from here. So in the way of closing statements, I'd like to continue to scramble things and go with House District 64 first, Ryan Armagost, and then Richard Webster, then House District 48, Spring Erickson and Gabe Evans, and then House District 50, Ryan Gonzalez and Mary Young. So your closing statement, and I remind you that you have a minute each. That's not very long. House District 64, Ryan Armagost.
I'm the only option as your new representative for House District 64. My opponent has studied leadership. Well, I have not only studied it, but lived it through my 22 years in the military as a leader of troops in combat and here at home. You need a legislator that can not only understand and create laws and amendments, but also knows how it will be enforceable at the constitutional level and the street level from my law enforcement experience. Through military and law enforcement, I've sworn multiple oaths to protect and defend our Constitution. Those oaths will never expire, and I will always stand by my word. Semper Fidelis is the Latin phrase that our United States Marine Corps has adopted, which means always faithful. I will always hold my faith to God, my family, my constituents, and fellow patriots of Colorado. We need to bring balance back to our state. We need a strong leader that is proven communicator and strategist in making things happen. Our state is in crisis from the past decade of unbalanced legislation and partisan agendas. We need to ditch the petty playground politics, roll up our sleeves, and get work done. We must remember we are a government. Our elected legislators are a government of the people and for the people, not to the people. I will be the strong representative that you need in District 64 in the state, and I look forward to your vote in November. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Ryan. Richard Webster.
Well, thank you for this opportunity for me to be here at the League of Women's Voters and this forum. I would like your vote, and wanted to say I would be a common sense representative for my district, believing in strong gun regulation, believing in strong women's rights. Oh, and healthcare. One thing that our opposite party will probably do is cut that. And so make sure we keep our state blue and that we maintain our certain rights, voting rights, women's rights, civil rights, medical rights, and funding for our schools. One thing about our opposite party, they like to cut taxes. We don't need cutting funding at all. And so looking for your vote for me in House District 64. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. House District 48, Spring Erickson.
I was always raised with the idea that if you want you need to be the change you want to see in the world. And that's what I'm trying to do. And what I want to do is make life a little easier for all Colorado families in healthcare, in education, in just going about our day-to-day business and being the Coloradoans we know we all are. I also want to continue to grow our thriving economy, find new avenues that can allow more people to have small businesses and be entrepreneurs in their own right. I want to strengthen education. I think we can work together, and that's the only way we can do this, is to work together to strengthen Colorado and be the changes that we want to see. And I would ask for your vote, and I am humbled by the honor to serve you in the state legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, Spring. Gabe Evans.
Well, I just want to thank all of the organizers for putting on this event. I really appreciate the amount of time and effort that you've gone through in order to be able to host this. Sorry for some of the technical difficulties that I've had, but I wasn't going to miss this event tonight, so I had to do it from the front seat of the car. My entire adult life has been characterized by service to my community. I know where I stand. Nobody wants a spineless politician. So I know what my principles are and what I won't compromise. But one of the things that I'm proudest of during my police service was the fact that I was only ever in 2 fights. And that is because I can collaborate with anyone. So out of thousands of contacts over a decade, the fact that I only ever got into 2 fights speaks to my track record of being able to collaborate with anyone under any circumstances. And I want to bring that skill to the state capitol so that we can roll up our sleeves and get to work on solving the problems that we're concerned about, with fixing historic crime spike, bringing the cost of living under control, and making Colorado a place where families can choose a winning education for their kids. You can learn more about me at Evans48, that's EVANS48.com, and I would love to earn your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabe. And House District 50, we'll start with Ryan Gonzalez.
I'm running for House District 50 because I know that I can better represent and support the people of this district. Not many Bering people can say that they grew up in a low-income single-parent household or grew up like practically almost half of the people here in the district. I'm running to give them a voice, not only just my community, but all of my constituents. It doesn't matter the affiliation or identity or where they come from. I want to work with my colleagues to move Colorado in a better direction, a great direction, but also including people and stakeholders at the seat at the table. I want to be able to work towards giving parents more school choice, the law enforcement, the tools and resources that they need to make sure that we have safe communities, and also undo excess regulation of small businesses, as well as make it a priority to help small businesses recover from this pandemic that has strained this district. And I have seen the devastation and I have heard their cry. And I know what it's like to grow up in these situations and tough, because I am one of the people of this district, and it's different from someone who actually hears about it. It's another thing for someone who lives through it and understands it. And that's why I believe I better represent House District 50.
Thank you, Ryan. And Mary Young.
Thank you. I want to say I have really loved this work, and I characterize myself as a public servant, not a politician, and that is how I have approached my work as a state representative. I have proven myself to be the voice for the people of House District 50. As a listener, I've knocked on many doors, listened to the people at town halls, and been involved in a wide range of community activities and events over many years. I work hard to represent everyone in this community, and I have demonstrated a commitment to the Latino community and our other diverse populations. I work to pass economic recovery and affordable housing bills that will improve the lives of people right here in this area. My deep experience in mental health and education, combined with the hard work at the Capitol, is in providing improvements in these areas, with also increasing transparency and accountability. I will continue to work to save families and small businesses money. You are my top priority. I will always make sure the residents of House District 50 get their fair share. I'm asking for your support so I can continue this great work.
Thank you, Mary. And now it's my pleasure to sign off as your moderator and turn this over for a closing statement from the League of Women Voters to Sandy Magnuson.
I am the co-leader of the Greeley-Weld League of Women Voters, and it's my privilege to express our gratitude to so many people who have helped to make this forum possible. And I'll start with the candidates. Thank you for participating with sincerity, integrity, clarity, and respectful civility. And thanks also for availing yourself to public office. And then to Dr. Ron Edgerton, who again has volunteered to moderate League of Women Voters Forum. This is not the first time we've asked, and I'm doubting that it will be the last time. So thank you so much, Ron. And then to our co-sponsors, I want to say thank you to the Latino Coalition of Weld County. And then to the many, many league members who have assisted in a variety of ways. Many of us are together. Thank you so much. And also to the Colorado League's Executive Director, Beth Hendricks, and Operations Manager, Hannah Poe. And then to our audience, and thank you for the questions you submitted. I wish we could have included all of them. We tried to integrate some. The responders, our candidates, spontaneously answered several, and there were some really good questions we didn't have time to include. So thank you, and I apologize for that. You've listened as the candidates expressed their positions regarding a variety of topics this evening. The League of Women Voters has asked us to remind the viewers that the information and perspectives that have been presented are those of the candidates and not necessarily of the sponsoring organization. As always, we encourage you to do your own research about candidates in all of the races to acquire relevant background and verify accuracy of opinions and information. One source for doing that is the League of Women Voters sponsored website, Vote 411. You can get information about the candidates that will be available in about a week. They've responded to a variety of questions. Their responses will be posted, we hope, by October 5th. You will also find information about the ballot issues at Vote 411. And as always, we'll distribute our traditional brochures about the ballot issues. We also hope you'll enjoy us. We hope you'll enjoy it, but we also hope you'll join us for a virtual discussion of 11 state ballot issues and 2 local ballot issues, and that will be on October 13th. Again, that will be virtual. The ballots will be mailed on or shortly after October 17th and must be returned by 7 p.m. on Election Day, November 8th. You'll be able to leave your ballots at designated drop-off boxes or at polling centers. You can return them through the United States Postal Service. You'll just need to mail your ballot by November 1st and be sure you have sufficient postage. I'll close with a reminder that active and responsible participation in the election processes is an essential element of making democracy work. And that supports the League of Women Voters mission, which is empowering voters and defending democracy. Thanks to our candidates, to Ron, to the League volunteers, to the Latino Coalition, and to you, the audience, for helping us with both of those endeavors. And with that, I'll say good evening and thanks again.